Hi there. Welcome to EHI training presented by Everyday Home Inspections. I'm George Lopez, your trainer, and we're about to do podcast number 13, which talks about some of the tools that we use, and it goes into the general liabilities and limitation. So let's get started. I know most of you are probably wanting to talk about what tools do we carry. I know that's the fun part of the business. I like tools, so I totally get it. And been asked about this by every single one of you. So one of the Zoom classes, we're going to have my bag. I'm going to pull out some of the stuff that I use, and I'm going to show it to you. And then and then we can have a discussion on what is and what's best and what isn't. But let's start with let's just go down the list here, because this podcast is actually labeled General Limitations and Exclusions. So let's have a little fun first before we get into this legality. A 6-foot level. I don't carry a 6-foot level. I carry a 4-foot level. But I do have a straight edge that's longer than 6 foot. It's actually, I think it's like 8 foot. And what it is you put them together, you put the two pieces together, and it becomes a long straight edge. And I hardly ever use it because I also carry a laser, and the laser has plumb and level. So plumb being straight up and down, and it shoots a light straight up and down. Don't use it often. And one of the things that I also will tell you, summer's heating up, and you got to be careful with your tools being in the truck. Batteries are susceptible to heat damage. Your sampling media will dry up in the heat. It also will freeze in the winter. So most of the time you'll bring your stuff in the house or into the office, and you'll leave it there. Now the important part is that you remember and you get in the habit of grabbing your tools that you're going to use for the day and take them with you. And we're only talking about some of the tools, not all the tools. Like the drone, I don't leave the drone in the truck in the heat. My radon canisters, I don't leave them in the heat. Everything's inside the house in the air-conditioned space. When I leave in the morning, I grab all that stuff. It's a pain, but it's a necessary evil. Some of us will have heated, conditioned garages, and that's what I recommend you use for your truck. And that's kind of like where we're heading. Hopefully we'll have a shop that is conditioned, and we can just pull the trucks inside the garage and leave them loaded. Okay, a moisture flashlight and belt loop. Okay, you don't need a belt loop. My flashlight's kind of small. I stick it in my back pocket, but I do have a belt loop. It's handy at times. I use it sometimes, but I've gotten in the habit of sticking my flashlight in my back pocket. I stick my camera in the front pocket. I stick my other phone in with my wallet on the other pocket. And then I stick my electric meter in the other pocket. There was a guy that was running around with like a vest he made, and he had all his tools hanging on it. I'm not sure that that's the best idea, but anyway, you're going to want to carry some tools on you, and the rest of them are in the bag. A moisture meter, absolutely necessary. You got to get one that doesn't poke holes in the wall or has the option of doing it both ways, because you're not allowed to be intrusive. So you can't make holes in walls, even with your moisture meter prongs. And then you're going to want to carry a little bit of repair, plaster repair with you. And in case you make a hole or something that needs to be done, you can, spackle it real fast afterwards. But you can't do anything without permission from the owner. So if you got a realtor there with you, you got to poke a hole somewhere, ask the realtor to call the other realtor, or they usually text each other. They're on notice. They're waiting for questions. Everybody's interested in what you're doing. So they'll text the other one. The other one will call the client. The client will get permission, and everything's good. And then for a mirror, a gas detector. I'm going out of order here. A gas detector, we talked about that. It's important. A mirror that you hardly will ever use, but maybe you'll get more use out of it than I do. Infrared thermometer, a circuit tester, a 3-prong GFC capable outlet tester. That's the one with the little button so you can test the GFIs. Again, we'll have a Zoom class dedicated to tools, a bulb tester, and it's pretty much the same as a circuit tester. We'll talk about that in the Zoom class also. A good set of screwdrivers with many types of bits. I have a little kit that has a bunch of bits on it and a ratchet screwdriver. I don't carry a power driver. Sometimes I regret it, but I've gotten in the habit of not carrying one, and I just hate maintaining batteries. It's just there's times when you got to twist off a lot, and maybe I'll put one in the truck. Maybe I'll find one of those powered screwdrivers, and not the drill bit kind, but the ones that are straight. And then the CO detector. All right. Let's move on to general limitations and exclusions for all home inspectors. This is part of the standards of practice. This is your limits and your exclusions. So the inspector is not required to perform actions or to make determinations or to make recommendations not specifically stated in these standards. So don't recommend anything. You don't have to do anything. You can just say, get on the Google and look it up, call a specialist. If you know about it, if you're licensed in it, like I'm a home improvement contractor, I've been my whole life. I was a builder for a while. I feel confident giving some advice, but some advice to stay away from. I know which advices are going to get me. Advice is going to get me in trouble. But you try to be helpful, but don't be silly. Inspections performed using this standard are not technically exhaustive, are not required to identify and to report concealed conditions, latent defects, consequential damage, and cosmetic imperfections that do not significantly affect a component's performance of its intended function, like a scratch on the wall, concealed conditions behind the wall you can't tell, latent defects. If you don't see it, if there's something wrong that you don't see, that can lead to consequential damages. You're not responsible for it. You're taking a snapshot of what you saw on that day as you walked around. And if you stick to what we talked about and the guidance that we've given you, you should be able to do a competent home inspection while staying out of trouble. And a lot of when I took the ASHI, I'm not even going to name their name, but the class that I took, everything was about staying out of trouble, lawsuits. This can cost you they worried more about keeping you out of trouble than actually doing your job. Do your job properly. There won't be any trouble. Get them to sign your agreement that explains all this, and then do the right job, and you'll be fine. Check all the windows. Check as many electrical outlets as you can. Be consistent, and you'll be fine. This standard applies to buildings with 4 or fewer dwellings and their attached or detached garage and carports. This standard shall not limit or prevent the inspector from meeting state statutes which license professional home inspections and home inspectors. So these standards are from ASHI. That's the ones that we use to train. I can tell you the Maryland one is lesser than this, so it's pretty close to the same actually. So check your state, use your states, compare the two, and go with the state, because that's the one that supersedes this one. Redundancy in the description of the requirements, limitations, and exclusions regarding the scope of the home inspection is provided for emphasis only. And you notice throughout the whole thing, we've repeated things quite a few times, and there's no reason not to. I mean, you want to hammer it home. General exclusions. The inspector is not required to determine the condition of systems and components that are not readily accessible. Okay, so if you can't reach it, you don't know what condition it's in. The remaining life expectancy of systems and components. The life expectancy of a furnace might be 20 years, and the unit is 18 years. You don't know that it's not going to last another 5 or 10 years, so you don't need to comment on that. You just say typically we say we're taught to say 10, 20 years for that system, but I see them that last a lot longer, so we can't really tell you how long it's going to last. The strength, adequacy, effectiveness, and efficiency of systems and components. The causes of conditions and deficiencies. Like, you don't want to tell them what you think the cost of something is, because you could be wrong, and your wrong might cost them a lot of money, so stay away from that. Methods, materials, and cost of corrections. Have them call a contractor. Future conditions, including but not limited to failure of systems and components. So you don't know when the system's going to fail. The suitability of the property for specialized uses. That's a zoning issue. And, will it structurally support another family? Things of that nature. I don't know. You're better off just staying away from things that are of a consultant nature. Compliance of systems and components with past and present requirements and guidelines, code, regulations, laws, ordinances, specifications, installations, maintenance, instructions, use, and care guides. So compliance of systems and components with past and present requirements and guidelines. So you don't know. Some things are grandfathered in. They may not be in compliance with the law right now. So you basically just tell them, does it work or doesn't work? You don't say, well, the code now has changed. In certain cases, you can, like the smoke detector law in Maryland. That's a law, and it's a safety item, and we worry about safety issues. So if it's a safety issue, you call it out, and if you find out that the law has changed, you could say something, but you basically would say that the smoke detector is obsolete. Contact an electrician. The electrician will let them know what type of smoke detector they need. Now, you can have a conversation with them and whatever, but let them know. The electrician will let you know. I think that, maybe, and sometimes the realtor will give you, they will give their opinion, which they're welcome to do. And you don't know the market value of the property and its marketability. You don't know what it's going to be worth after they fix certain things that you've called out. You don't know anything about market value. There's a realtor there that can do that job for them. It's doing that job for them. That will just point to the realtor and go ask them about that. The advisability of purchasing the property. Don't advise whether to buy or to sell it. Don't ever say, I wouldn't buy this, because you don't know. You're pointing out the obvious, making a list. They're making the decision. The presence of plants, animals, and other life forms and substances that may be hazardous or harmful to humans, including but not limited, wood-destroying organisms, mold, and mold-like substances. Okay, so you're not required in the home inspections to do any of that. Now, if you offer it as an extra, and we will do more, we're going to do pools, we're going to do termites, we're going to do, and we're going to talk about termites, but if you want to be termite certified, if you want to learn about termites, Purdue University has a mail order online program that's pretty excellent. The presence of environmental hazards, including but not limited to allergens, toxins, carcinogenics, electromagnetic radiation, such as power lines right over a house, too close to a house, that might be an issue, but you're not required to talk about it. Noise, radioactive substances, contaminants in building materials, soil, water, and air. And noise is interesting because they'll come in a house, they'll look at a house that's right next to an airport and not even notice anything, because maybe airplanes weren't flying overhead at that moment. And then you come back and you walk around the house and the airplanes are one right after the other. They'll figure that out on their own. And the realtor should have told them what the conditions are. It's not your job to let them know, hey, airplanes fly over top. Okay, the effectiveness of systems installed and methods used to control or remove suspected hazardous plants, animals, and environmental hazards. So the effectiveness of systems installed and methods used to control or remove, you're not required to talk about that. Like, I don't know, chicken fence. Is it going to keep my chickens in? I don't know. Operating costs of systems and components. You're not required to say if a system's inefficient. You can say, I think this is a pretty inefficient system. You may want to ask for, how much money they spend on electricity or gas. The acoustical properties of systems and components. If they have a music shop, a music room, you're not going to let them know, or, you're not going to let them know how well those things work, or the other way around. If so, there's noise outside. Will this insulation work better than others? Soil conditions relating to geotechnical or hydrologic specialties. Anything relating to the grounds, it's geotechnical, and they need a geotechnical engineer for that. Weather items, materials, conditions, and components are subject to recall, controversy, litigation, product liability, and other adverse claims and conditions. So you're not required to some inspectors get into the habit of looking up all the stuff in the house, and you can make a sale or the purchase of a property very complicated by overstating things. And so just be careful on what you look at. But like polybutylene plumbing, you can say that there was a class action lawsuit that was lost by the polybutylene manufacturer, and they're all gone now, and I don't think there's any money left for you. So if you got to replace the polybutylene, it's probably going to be on your dime. You definitely want to stay on top of the polybutylene and the Zinsco panels. And anyway, the inspector is not required to offer or to perform acts or services contrary to law or to the government or to government regulations. You're not required to perform architectural, engineering, contracting, surveying services, or to confirm or to evaluate such services performed by others. So don't look at somebody else's stuff and say, oh yeah, that looks right to me. Just stay away from that. Or to perform trades or professional services other than the home inspection. You're not a warranty or a guarantee company. And be careful with performing any other professional services, because there might be a conflict of interest. The inspector is not required to operate systems and components that are shut down or otherwise inoperable. So if a gas range is disconnected and the gas is meant to, do not reconnect it. Systems and components that do not respond to normal operating controls. So if they don't respond, just leave it off and call it off. Remember, you're calling out. That's your power is to put pen to paper. Shut off valves and manual stop valves. We talked about that. Don't open and close main valves. Automatic safety controls. Don't operate any automatic safety controls. Stay away from. Just call for a service. Everything requires service at some time or another. The inspector is not required to enter areas that will, in the professional judgment of the inspector, likely to be dangerous to the inspector or other persons, or to damage the property or its systems and components. You're not required to go under floor spaces, crawl spaces, and attics that are not readily accessible. So 18 inches for a crawl space is pretty low. I don't even like going in 24-inch crawl spaces. So just use your common sense. If you feel claustrophobic, don't do it. You can run into trouble. In accessible attics, just look at it from the access point. Hopefully you can see all of it. If you need to enter it, you got to know what you're doing, and do not disturb the installation. The inspector is now required to inspect underground items, including but not limited to underground storage tanks and other underground indications of their presence, whether abandoned or active. And that's a very important one, that it's in there, because underground tanks can have been, the piping to them could have been cut off, or it might be there and you miss it. You're focused on the house. Bushes grow around the filler tube for an underground tank. So this kind of, limits your liability. And that's very important in your insurance, in having affordable insurance. Insurance for home inspectors is not that expensive, as long as you stay out of trouble. Items that are not installed. Obviously, if it's laying on the floor, it's not part of the house. Don't worry about it. Install decorative items, tchotchkes, whatever. Items in areas that are not entered in accordance with 13.2. So if you can't enter it, you don't have to. You want to make a comment that you didn't do it. You didn't do it because of the following reason. Detached structures other than garages and carports. So a shed is not really part of your deal. I look at sheds as an added value. I tried to look at them. They got problems. Some sheds need to be removed, and the seller wants to get rid of it. Doesn't want to do it. So, I make a note. The shed's in poor condition. Common elements in common areas in multi-unit housing, such as condominium properties and cooperative housing. So, condominium properties have areas that are common to both of them. I take pictures of the pool area, the dumpsters, whatever I can get a picture of in there. But I don't comment on it. I just do it as a service, just to let them know they have it. If the stairs to their house is unsafe, if their stairs to their condo has pickets that are wider than they should be, I absolutely call it out. If I'm walking to it, I'm using it to access it, I call it out. But you're not required to, because it's a condominium issue. Every occurrence of multiple similar components, so you don't have to say this outlet works, that outlet works, that outlet works, no. Outdoor cooking appliances, grills, and things of that nature are not required. Okay, the inspector is not required to perform procedures or operations that will, in the professional judgment of the inspector, likely be dangerous to the inspector or other persons. Some of this is repetitive. On other persons or damage to the property or its systems or components. Let me go back a minute. Yeah, we'll just go through it and see if it. I think that's repetitive. Describe or report on systems and components that are not included in the standards and that were not inspected. Move personal property, furniture, equipment, plants, soil, snow, ice, and debris. And this is an important one because that you're not required to move something that may have been placed to conceal something. It's not yours. You can let the buyers tell them, that I can't move that. It's a couch with they can move stuff if they want and show it to you, but you yourself are not required to do it. Move it if it's light. Don't move it if it's heavy. Comment on it. If you comment on it, the seller will have to move it, and then the buyer will see it when they do their walkthrough. There's always a walkthrough before settlement. If you bought a house, you know that. There's, they move out, you come through, and you look and make sure that the house you're buying is the house you meant to buy, and that they didn't take all the fixtures with them that were supposed to be left behind. Excuse me. Dismantle systems and components except as explicitly required by this standard. Reset, reprogram, or otherwise adjust devices, systems, and components affected by inspections required by the standard. So you trip the circuit breaker, and all the clocks are now reset to zero, to whatever. You're not required to program them all. You have to know how to program them. And you're just not required to. And they can say something about it, and you can apologize for it and explain to them why that it would be impossible for you to know how to program every clock in the rainbow. Ignite or extinguish fires, pilot lights, burners, and other open flames that require manual ignition. If it requires manual ignition, you want to make sure that it isn't something that should be replaced with a modern pilot. You're not required to probe surfaces that would be damaged or where no deterioration is visible or presumed to exist. Okay, so That's it. We have finished this program. Well, that's it. Congratulations on finishing all 13 podcasts. And along with all the Zoom classes, I hope you're charged up and ready to go and become a home inspector. Congratulations.